We'll take about 20, 30 seconds. Maybe
Okay.
shortly.
Can we change the thumbnail for the last meeting we had?
The thumbnail?
Yeah, it's me sitting there going like I'm deep in thought or taking a food. One of the two.
Okay, we are now live.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I will officially call the meeting to order at 2:02.
Where's the mute at?
You could see it next to.
Can we change the thumbnail for the last meeting we had? There we go.
There we go.
I hear from somebody.
I know, I heard that too. So, so we've got two sets of meetings to approve. Does everybody have both those? Or everybody looked at those?
Yes.
Any questions on those? All right, so first we will approve the May 13th minutes. So there's no discussion on the May 13th minutes. I need a motion to approve that. Anybody?
I'll motion to.
Motion from AJ. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second from Josh. So we'll go through roll call. Josh? Josh, yay or nay?
Oh, sorry. What was that?
Just getting votes on the minutes to approve them.
Yes.
Okay. Chris?
Yay.
Megan?
Yes.
AJ?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. And then on to last week's meeting, May 20th, the kickoff of PFGW. Anything to discuss from those minutes? I think Megan just sent those over.
Now, are the minutes divided out of the executive versus non-executive?
I don't take minutes during executive session. They're not
Okay.
posted there.
Okay.
It just says that we go into executive session.
Okay.
I'm trying to record who all's here. I've got somebody that's just showing up as a phone number. Who is that?
That's Josh's phone.
Oh, okay.
That's me. Sorry. I'm
No.
off work and I'm in the car.
That's fine. I was just making sure I had everybody recorded that was here.
But you're in video as well, Josh, but just audio is via telephone?
I'm on my phone, yes. I couldn't figure out how to get the video going, so I just called in so that I'd make it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, any questions on the minutes from last week?
No.
Okay. I will take a motion to accept the minutes from May 20th.
I'll make the motion.
There we go. All right, Brian makes a motion. Can I get a second?
A second.
Second by AJ. All right, we'll go through roll call. Brian,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Ashley.
Yes.
All right. We're a little asleep today. We're taking a little bit of a while on these motions here. So probably Brian's UK shirt. He's putting everybody to sleep. We gotta. All right, next is financial report. Miss Ashley's on, so I'll let her take that over.
Yep, I sent out some screenshots to you guys yesterday just to have for your records, but our current available balance is $453,759.24. Since our last meeting, we had a expense check for Chris Hill for Team Kentucky Clear for $116.85. And then our April collected deposit went in for $67,562. And then we had some interest go in as well. The only thing that's currently pending right now is we'll be paying our liability insurance, which will be $21.40. And that'll be paid sometime in the first week of June.
Will be a very small deposit next couple of months.
That's
Yeah.
what my next question was going to be. I guess May and June will be the two smaller deposits, and then hopefully it picks back up after that. Or you think it'll be more than two, AJ or Ashley?
I mean, yeah, I think it'll get low for the next I mean, we went from doing 80 to 90 to 60 just in the last couple months. So I think that we'll see a couple more, at least 2, probably 3 lower months, and then hopefully pick back up.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Ashley on the financial report?
So we've received a check during the month of May. Did I hear that correct?
We deposited in the month of May, but it was for April collected. We have not gotten May's collected yet. We'll get that sometime in June.
Oh, Ashley, that can be April, correct? That's March. The one you just deposited, it should be for the March, not for the April.
Correct. It's April collected for March. That's how they go. That's how they do them.
Yes.
So then the next one we get will be May collected for April.
Yes.
Yep.
And those checks now are being deposited directly into the account, correct, Steve? We've got that set up. Okay.
Correct.
So we won't.
Yes.
So we don't have to take those to the bank anymore and put them in the wrong account can or anything like that. Any other questions for Ashley?
Just glad to see you, ma'am.
Thanks. You too.
All right, Ashley, you want to make a motion to accept financials?
Yes. I make a motion to accept the financials for this month.
And can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Chris. All right, roll call. Josh,
Yes.
Ashley,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
AJ,
Yes.
and Brian.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, so next is the contract. We've been negotiating with ViewWorks. So the way we'll do this is I'm gonna let Kent kind of go over some of the things they sent that they want to change. As for this contract, if we're okay with everything they sent, we can vote on this today, but we don't have to either, because I know y'all just got it about an hour or two ago, and you may want to dig into it a little bit more. So we may want to go through these changes and kind of take a proposal back to them with some different changes, or we may say we're fine with it. Let's move on. Ken, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pull this up so everybody can have it on their screen. And then if you want to kind of discuss it, then we can go from there. If I can hit the right button, that would help. Oh, Steve, you have to enable screen sharing.
Give it to one of them.
While Jim is figuring out the technology of it, I'll just kind of remind folks what this is. Even this is, of course, the commission's initial project. It's to purchase basketball courts, portable basketball flooring for the convention center, which will be used hopefully to allow the convention center to host basketball, volleyball, cheerleading, whatever types of tournaments or events they can stir up out there to bring in folks to put heads in beds. And so it was structured as a lease agreement whereby the commission would purchase the basketball flooring and bear all of that expense, and then appoint the convention center as its agent to receive and accept the portable flooring upon its delivery. And then the convention center would be responsible for maintaining the flooring, insuring it, repair, upkeep, all the expense associated with the flooring. And the commission, we would lease the floors to the convention center for a minimal or nominal rent. It was $1 a year. And we were structuring it as a lease like this for a couple of purposes. I think mainly it had to do with the financing of it, since bonds are going to be issued to eventually to pay for or to reimburse the commission for this expense, and so they can be paid over time. And so the main provision, I guess, really, since we were using this as our first real project, and we wanted to make sure that it, was well received and that it gave us an ability to justify this, not insignificant expense. It's Jim, what did the courts come back at? Almost 600,000.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it was more than
566,000.
yeah, it was more than a little bit of money. So kind of the guts of the agreement was in this section 3 that I don't know if you saw the email that Jim sent out to you probably about an hour ago that kind of has that section 3 posted in there. And that's just really where, we're not holding the convention center to any, well, Jim, I'll point out, you can't really see it there because they removed the total section 3.
Do I need to go further down, Kent?
Well, no, that's why I pasted it into the email that I sent you. It's in the body of that email that went out. But I can just tell you really just the gist of it. I don't know that everybody needs to be looking at it to make sense. The ideal was that we would pay for the courts, we would bear that expense and basically provide them gratis to the convention center because it helped us both achieve our purposes, helped them bring in folks for tournaments, and helped us achieve overnight stays in local hotels and motels. And so we had in that section 3 that got removed that that the convention center would use its best efforts to host 12 sports tournaments a year. And in this initial year, we provided that they would only have to use their best efforts to host 3 tournaments, because we realized that they're going to take some time to get off the ground and didn't want to put them in a tough way. So a couple things. First, they only have to use their best efforts. It's not that that we're saying if you don't host 12 tournaments a year, or if you don't do this or that, we're going to take back the courts or anything like that. But so it just required them to use, diligent efforts to host these tournaments. And so that was in section 3.1 that got removed. And the expectation is that these tournaments would be, at the time they sign them, they would be something that would bring in, or could be expected to bring in, an appreciable number, not a definite number of folks to stay in our local hotels and motels. So, and then we also had in there that they would give preference to hosting tournaments like that when they're scheduling their facility. Then in section 3.2 that was also removed, we kind of tried to provide some means of getting feedback from the convention center, just on the just so we would have data on how we're doing really in providing for putting heads in beds. And so that section or subsection provides for the convention center to make quarterly reports to the Sports Tourism Commission, just telling them, what contracts they have entered for tournaments to be hosted there, what they have underway in the upcoming year, just to kind of have a rolling idea of what they're doing, how diligently they're pursuing it, what angles are working, and then ask them to let us know if they're encountering any kind of particular difficulties in scheduling events, or just to try to get an idea of some feedback, so maybe we can work with them. And so anyway, the draft that Jim sent me of this agreement, when they returned it to us, that was completely taken out. And then there was a section 3.3 that was also removed that required them to keep accurate books and records of their work in scheduling tournaments and procuring future tournaments. So you wanted to just have some idea of how our dollars would be used, just so we would have some trail of accountability if need be. And I don't think anybody anticipated it's something that we were going to ride close herd on them, but would like to have some feedback. So, this commission can say, yeah, we have this project that we can legitimately say brought in this X number of folks to stay in local facilities overnight for this many room nights over this period of time. So that was the idea. That was the main thing that was a little bit troubling about what was removed. A lot of it, there's a lot of markups if you look at what Jim posted before, and I think most of that are things that can easily be worked through with the attorney for this for the convention center and for Venue Works, the contract management company for the convention center. But that's kind of the main thing I think that we would need some feedback on, whether to press on having, they didn't tell us why they removed it. I don't know if Michelle or anybody gave you any feedback, Jim, but there wasn't anything in the actual document that you sent me that explained why that was removed, or how strongly they felt about it.
I mean, the main thing Michelle told me was they were pretty much going off their standard contracts that VenueWorks uses for these type of things. I mean, that's not much of an example or anything, but it's because there's also, and apparently I mean, she didn't give me much detail into it, and it may be that we need to kind of get together with their team and understand it fully.
Because so this is just a layperson repeating what I think you said, Kent. So basically, they want us to spend $600,000, lease it to them for $1 a year. They have no accountability of what they're doing with it. Correct?
Right. And then another change they made that I didn't really discuss was that initially the draft that I prepared gave us the right to terminate the lease arrangement, recover the possession of the courts on giving them 120 days notice before the end of each contract year. We would have that right. If we just weren't satisfied that they were really trying to lease out the facility and sponsor tournaments and such, which of course nobody really expects to happen. But then they've changed that provision to really say that, okay, first of all, they made it 180 days, which I don't think is a problem. So we would still have the right each year within 180 days before the end of the year to terminate the lease. But they've got in there that if they have any event scheduled, no matter really how far in the future, at that point of that we notify them of termination, then we're still required to provide the facilities, the courts, the flooring, or else be responsible for whatever loss or harm that they might incur, which in a way is not really, I understand their concern there, but that needs to be massaged some in my mind too, because they could have.
I'm sorry, Ken. The one thing that she did say was that due to all this coronavirus stuff, they were kind of worried about the number of tournaments we wanted, because it did say, 1 per month or 12 a year. And she said, hey, look, we're going to do everything we can to push this. She goes, but if we get back to a second wave of COVID-19 in the fall, there's gonna be no way that I'm gonna be able to do tournaments in the fall. And I said, yeah, you're clearly right. So that was, I think, part of the wording in that was they were afraid of, now that we've gone through this pandemic, that kind of changes the way that we have to look at that, because, the second wave hits, they may be knocked out for 2 or 3 months and not be able to get to that 12.
Right. Right. But I think that all of us, because we're trying to work together as a team on this, and, if a second wave hits, we're going to be extremely understanding of if we have less tournaments.
Right. And let's make sure we understand this isn't coming from Michelle and the Paducah team. This is from Venue Works out in Evansville that's making these changes. And us having a conversation with Michelle, she knows us and can trust us. Us having this conversation with Venue Works, it's going to be hard for them to trust people they don't know that says, oh, well, we'll have a conversation and be okay. So, that I kind of see both sides from that standpoint.
Now, was there something, I thought we had something in there before as I was going through and looking at it with a preference of the floors being used for a 2-day tournament for out of town players versus a 1-day tournament. Has that verbiage been taken out as well, Kent?
Yeah, I don't think there ever was a, yeah, there was not ever a firm commitment that it had to be 2-day tournaments, but how did we have, what was
Well,
it?
I think we took that out, Kent, because we looked at it as, especially starting off, there's not going to be any way to guarantee we can get 2-day tournaments. And that's kind of putting added pressure on them to book those because.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. I think after when I initially drafted it, it did have more of a firm commitment on the night.
Look at the first page under the third whereas.
Yeah.
Because they deleted spend at least 2 nights in motels in Paducah and McCracken County.
Right. That's just kind of, that's not a provision that has any real force. That's just kind of a whereas, just kind of setting the party's expectations, but it does go into just the whole gist of what they've done is to pull out any kind of provision that would hint at them having any firm commitment to really do anything. The way the contract is now, it's almost like we're just buying the courts, handing it to them and saying, here, hope it goes well for you with it and for us, without really having any ability to influence the process going forward or any leverage to maintain some even small amount of oversight over how the facility is used. And but back to your initial question, Chris, I think it did initially have some language about the 2-night stays, but as I understood it, after there'd been some feedback from Michelle, Jim conveyed that needed to be modified, and so I think at that point, in that section 3.1, it was changed to a tournament, which is what they're required to host, as an event that could reasonably be expected to result in an appreciable number of room nights being spent in local hotels or motels. So it went from a more of a firm commitment down to an appreciable number of overnight stays per event. So again, they don't really have, they just have to use their best efforts to host events that will draw folks to stay for an appreciable number of overnight stays. So it's not like there's any hard and fast standards at this point that we're even trying to hold them to.
I think there needs to be some kind of accountability in there, in that we're spending $600,000 of taxpayer money, and we're basically giving it to them at this point. And because what I think what I don't want to see happen is like, okay, a promoter wants to put on like the tournaments that are either at Murray State or in the city of Mayfield, where there's where literally you have local teams come in, they play for 6 hours and they go home. That is not what we're here to do. There needs to be some kind of verbiage in there that says, hey, preference is going to be given to a tournament that is a 2-day tournament with hotel stays coming from it. I thought we need to go back and say, hey, there needs to be some accountability in the contract in there.
So there's 2 parts of this, Chris. I think one, you can't dictate who's going to sign up for your tournaments. So I could say I'm putting together a basketball tournament that's going to be 2 days. That doesn't mean that I'm guaranteed people from St. Louis are going to come. I can't stop Bowling Green, Owensboro, Paducah teams coming in and driving back home. So that's kind of hard to dictate because there's no way to put on a tournament that just says you have to spend the night. we can put in the guaranteed rooms for the people that do spend the night, but I believe that only applies to teams that have to spend the night. And then I guess second, Kent, so is that something that needs to be a contract with the convention center separate from VenueWorks? Like that's something we tie into a contract with her board and Michelle versus this contract with VenueWorks? I mean, are those two things separate? Can those two be separate?
I think it just needs to be in the contract with the convention center corporation, and then VenueWorks just manages the facility for them. So it's going to be up to, basically up to VenueWorks to carry out the terms of what their boss, the convention center, has agreed to. So I don't think we need a separate contract with VenueWorks. It seems to me like VenueWorks is treating this more as a contract, as if everybody, it was a for-profit situation where they were dealing with somebody who was leasing them a court really to make money instead of what we're doing just to spur tourism. In my mind, I think it could be resolved if we could just maybe have a call with VenueWorks, maybe their attorney, and then the attorney for the convention center, and just maybe they don't really have a hard and fast objections to some of these provisions. Maybe they just pulled them out because they could, and it's better it's easier for VenueWorks if they don't have to submit a quarterly report. So it could be that it's really a non-issue, but maybe they don't understand really why we feel like we need it in there to have some accountability for the taxpayer funds that we're investing in the project.
Because originally we were going to have a mileage, like a minimum mileage requirement on there.
Yeah, that was the original plan. And we scaled it back to what we initially sent because we felt that was a more realistic expectations going forward without the exact details of, it has to be half from 100 miles away or something like that.
And the very important is go ahead.
For the concern of the pandemic as well and how it affects accountability here, couldn't we include a clause? Because as Chris said, of course, we would be extremely reasonable if events like that arose.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I don't think there'd be a problem with putting some language in there about it, but the way it's worded now, tried to make it pretty easy for them to handle. It just requires them to use their best efforts to schedule these tournaments. If they're on the phone, if we get another flare up of COVID-19 or something else, and they're on the phone trying to talk to promoters, and the promoters are telling them, hey, nobody's traveling, we just can't book events. Well, they've used their best efforts. It's not, and we'll understand that.
And with what they removed, it basically is also saying they don't have to report at all what they're doing or what they're trying to do. The accountability removed covers all of that, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that part needs, those quarterly reports, I think that needs to be in there. I think there needs to be that accountability.
I'd at least like to be able to ask and be told what attempts are being made.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see any issue with that. Like I said, the only thing which I've always disagreed with is how do we dictate tournaments and who's going to come? We just can't. Brian, you tell me if I'm wrong that standpoint, but I just don't know how you would dictate who's going to sign up for a tournament, who's not. But I definitely think it's reasonable to say, hey, give us a quarterly report of what you've booked and who you booked it with. And, obviously booking it with the Dan Hudson who deals with people from out of town is going to help control getting teams from out of town.
And that is the booking. When they make the bookings, that has to be we have to be careful from the beginning that the book comes directly through the like Paducah Travels or whatever the websites we make up, because if it comes from the OTAs and all that, actually we're going to earn the less tax money for the all the revenues that we're going to make for the tournaments.
Yeah.
So we want
I
to
think
make
that's one thing that they've been working with Mary and her staff there about, you know, when they book these tournaments, they immediately go to Mary's staff for hotel rooms and rates and stuff like that, and trying to block off stuff. So I think they've got that process down.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'll point out there was some language in that section that said that each quarterly report should provide a complete explanation of the methodology employed for estimating or counting room nights stayed or estimated for lodgers at each tournament, sufficient to demonstrate the reasonableness of such estimate or counting of a tournament room nights stayed by lodgers. So, you know, it's not like they have a definite requirement, but they do have to be able to give us some reasonable basis for understanding, you know, why they estimated that they would have X number of overnight stays.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I guess the next step is, you know, we'll try to get a call set up with Michelle, Venue Works, and maybe their attorney, and maybe just kind of hash this out so we can get this completed. Because I mean, in the courts, you know, will probably be finalized and approved at the fiscal court tonight, you know, to start getting them built, and they're beating at the drum to get them started and built for us. Connor Sports is, you know, so this is the next piece, and we got to finalize this contract. So
well, if the contract with Connor Sports, you know, assuming it's approved tonight as you anticipate, then you know, I don't know if it provides for McCracken County or the commission to give them a notice to proceed with the construction, but if it does, then I think we ought to hold off on giving that until we can quickly, hopefully, set up a call and kind of get some assurance that we can get this ironed out. Because, you know, if those courts are on their way and are going to be delivered
here we are waiting for the dealing with the convention center, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have to be, everything has to be finalized by June 10th with Connor. We have to start the bid process all over again. So it's in everybody's best interest, obviously, to push that through. So I can reach out to Michelle when we get off this call and just say, hey, look, we need that call this week, really, to get this contract finalized, because we don't have time to sit around and wait. And they kind of took forever to get this contract back to us anyways. I mean, we just got it back.
We gave it to him, in March?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to have to kind of be pushed through. And, you know, I mean, you've got Venue Works attorney looking at it. You've got the convention center's attorney looking at it. So it's touching several hands, but we're going to have to get that pushed through to get these courts ordered. And like I said, I mean, if it's delayed anymore past that 10th, we had to start this whole process all over again.
Yeah. I'm really confident that we can get something worked out if we can just get them on the phone and kind of hear why they made whatever these changes, and let us explain why that's in there and kind of our view of it. I don't think it should be anything that would be difficult to work through.
Yeah, I agree with that. So any other discussion on that? Everybody kind of in agreement? We just kind of get that call set up, and then at that point, what we'll do is once we have a contract we can all agree upon, we'll vote on it at the next meeting. I guess really the only thing from that standpoint is, Kent, we'd have to, I guess once you feel comfortable with the contract, we'd almost have to go ahead and have the courts fully approved before the commission can vote on the contract. Because if it's due by the 10th, we won't meet again until.
Because we've already done everything that our group needs to do to issue the purchase order to Connor, correct?
Yeah, I mean, once the fiscal court approves the bond issues tonight, we're completely done on our end. So those courts are ready to be approved and started building. And our next meeting will be June 10th. So that would be a pretty tight deadline to say we're going to approve this and then push it through.
Jim, with you having the authority to actually sign off on the contract, I would suggest if next week, if there could be some agreement made, that we maybe have a call meeting.
I'm fine with that. I mean, just call it, we'd have a special meeting just for that. We could call that. So, we'll try to get this call set up as quick as we can, Kent, and then As soon as we have that call and we're at where we feel comfortable, Kent, we'll just call a special quick meeting of the commissioners to vote on this and be done with it.
Okay.
Do we need a motion, Ken, I really don't need a motion for me to negotiate.
No, there's really no need for that. No.
So,
Yeah.
way past my pay grade as far as contracts.
Just a FYI, I am out of town next week on vacation, kinda, but give me a heads up. As long as we're not literally on the lake, I think we should be able to help out. Or I can just use my phone. So
Cell phones work everywhere, Chris. Okay, no excuse.
not underwater, not underwater.
Okay.
Right,
so
that Holiday World.
yeah, I'll get that. I'll tell Michelle it's kind of time critical and she's going to push that through pretty quickly. And we'll hopefully get that knocked out next day or two. Because I know Connor's waiting pretty heavily for these courts, and I know Chris has talked to them, and they've even they're building the panels, and they're excited to get it done and get it delivered to us this summer. So, any other questions on that contract for Kent?
So everybody is kind of in agreement that we do need to have some accountability in the contract, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I know
Yes.
that's been okay.
Yes.
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 Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, I guess technically if we wanted to, we could kind of come to agreement of what that accountability is, and then that contract could be approved from that standpoint, right, Ken? I mean, if we just think that's a summary report or what that looks like, I don't know if, what's your thoughts on that, Kent?
Well, like I said in the email, there's a number of other little things that I think need to be tweaked in what they've sent us regarding indemnities and insurance and the like. That I hesitate to say that approval of just a concept at this stage would count as approving the contract itself. So
No, that's fine. We'll set that call up to kind of come to a final agreement and then get approval from the commission. So not a problem from that standpoint. All right. Anything else on that contract from that standpoint?
I did have just one, I think other substantive question about it. My understanding was that they took out one term that said that any ramps needed for the courts or the flooring would not be their responsibility. Does the bid with Connor, I can't remember, does that include any ramps that are needed?
No, it does not.
I didn't think it did. So I wasn't really sure why they pulled that out. But I was just checking. That's another item we need to talk to them about.
Chris, if you remember, we talked to Michelle about it when we meet over there. Michelle and what's the guy name? And they was going to provide that, I think, based on the ADA compliance and all that. Is that right, Chris?
I'm sorry, I was being asked questions behind me. On the ramps, Scott at VenueWorks doesn't think we need ramps. And so I know he wasn't pushing for the ramp issue. And based upon his recommendation, we don't think we need ramps. But, if the convention center thinks they need ramps, they need to get them. So it just seems like a lot of give on our side and not a lot on the other side coming back.
Yeah.
So
The 1% tax going over there, that needs to be spent some money too.
Amen, brother.
Yep.
I believe the ramps were just at that entrance point coming in.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think, in a good faith, we're trying to give them the tools that the Expo Center needs in order to host tournaments. And by far the biggest issue they have is they need to have some kind of courts to go down there. And in good faith, we're providing, $600,000 worth of courts. Between Jim and Michelle, they were able to procure a lot of the donations from the old Sportsplex for nets and basketball goals and such. And I think that there's been a lot of effort being put forward on this to make it happen. And so we can't anticipate all the to the nth degree, all the details that are truly going to have to happen in order to host the first tournament. And I think that, I don't think we should be the ones providing all of it, especially with the split of the transit hotel room tax that the Expo Center is getting to promote sports tourism. They need to be spending that money on something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. And so we can definitely address that as well. Anything else, Kent, that we're missing off that?
Well, along those lines, I'm pretty sure, and I can't find the language just sitting here right immediately, but I'm confident that there's language in there that the courts will be operated in compliance with applicable law, regulations, and such. And if it turns out that that they need a ramp to be ADA compliant or to otherwise under codes, then that would be on them to take care of.
The one thing I see in the section here is it talks about the life expectancy of the courts. Yeah, I mean, from everything that we've understood, 20 years is pretty standard for those courts, if not longer.
Okay. If not longer, yeah. I mean, I thought it was probably longer than 20 years. I wasn't really sure why they were trying to limit it to have an affirmative statement that we both agree that the courts or their useful life is really only 20 years. And I might ask Steve Irvin if that has any implications for our bond issues.
I can't answer that question right now.
Yeah.
I had thought that it was longer than that also, especially as it relates to maintenance of the floor, the yearly maintenance.
Yeah.
So we need to change that to I mean, do we know the exact number, Chris, on how long those courts are supposed to last?
Generally, they're saying 20 to 25 years. The standard answer is it depends on how well you take care of them.
Yeah.
With the major issue being whenever you either install the floors or pick them up and store them again. Generally, most of it happens in that transition. Generally, whenever they're down, they're fine. When they're stored, they're fine. It's in the transition between stored versus in use or laying them down is the issue.
Yeah. So, I mean, do we feel comfortable with the 20-year mark since that's kind of the standard 20, 25 years? I mean,
I feel comfortable with that. I don't think there's is there any risk of saying it's 20?
Well, I think we'd want to satisfy ourselves that it didn't need to be longer than that for purposes of the bonds. If the term of the bonds is longer than that, municipal bond law is kind of a peculiar area, and we might want to get an opinion whether the life of the courts or the facilities that are being purchased need to at least be as long as the amortization period for the bonds. But 20 years just struck me as being the minimum of the useful life.
I kind of always thought it was 20, 25 years, but what we can do is we'll get that from Steve. He'll have a chance to look that up. And we'll make sure that goes in with the bonds. So we've got that in accordance to that properly.
Yeah.
Is that every 4 to 5 years we have to restain the floors? Is it in the contracts too with them that they are?
It is their obligation to maintain the courts and to make all necessary repairs and to use best practices or manufacturers' guidelines in maintaining, repairing the courts. So, it doesn't spell out the certain number of years between, resanding and painting or refinishing, but it does apply those applicable standards that they will abide by.
Okay. So like I said, I'll get that set up as quick as possible. We'll address those issues, Kent, until you kind of feel comfortable with it, and then we'll set up a call to approve the contract. So.
Okay.
Anything else on the course before we move on to new business? Okay. As far as
Mr.
new
Warren?
business, what, Chris?
Orange checkerboards.
Or checkerboard, yeah, we'll get that worked in. We don't have to vote on that, Chris. We're just gonna
Goes
one of
without
those, you know,
saying. Huh?
yeah, one of those. Oops, sorry, they did it on
Understood.
their own. You know, Connor sent the courts to us instead of Tennessee. What are you gonna do? You know. As far as new
I'm
business,
from Athens, Georgia, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
hey, like Peyton Manning said, we can't wear red and black. We don't want to give Kirby Smart anything. But as far as new business, we don't have anything to go over. Over probably the next week or so, I'll be emailing you, or before the next meeting, the policy for liability insurance. I asked commissioners that we need to review, and we'll approve that at the next meeting, as well as the bond insurance for AJ and Brian. So we should be finalizing that, and we will send that information out to approve at the next meeting. Which is this time, not the phone in for the contract, but our regular scheduled meeting on June 10th. Steve, any idea if we may potentially be meeting in person at that point, or?
Not sure at this point.
Okay. We kick the meeting. I mean, technically if we only like half of us, we could have it, just in person, to stay under 10 people. All right. Anything else for new business that I can think of? Anything we need to bring up to the next meeting?
Well, what about the PFGW review of the Pinnacle report and their comments? Do we need to have any discussion of that? And do we need to give them a reply or our comments on their review?
Yeah, we need to get back with them with that, and I have not had a chance. We kind of had to rush the agenda because the holiday threw me and Steve for a loop there. So me getting the agenda to him and out before the 24-hour rule about didn't happen.
Hey, one thing, I know the chamber is having a webinar hosted by the Chamber and Paducah Convention Visitors Bureau about travel and tourism driving the economic recovery. Is anybody planning on listening in or attending that tomorrow? Have y'all seen anything on it?
Potentially, I'll be on if I'm done with the client. So,
Has everybody else heard about it at least?
Yes, I got a notice of it.
I think that as many of our group, I think it makes sense for us to attend because it's going to be associated for what we're doing somewhat, and the more because I know we're all still learning how to serve the local area as well as we can. Granted, we're travel and tourism based with an emphasis on sports, but I think a lot of what they're going to be talking about, I imagine, would be very applicable to what we're trying to do in our group.
yeah. Yeah, I would recommend being on that call if you can. Brian, going back to your Pinnacle report, we did not get that on the agenda, but I know looking through it, it probably needs some pretty detail about all commissioners. So you've already done that. You're ahead of the game. So did everybody get that design team review of the Pinnacle report from PEC and what they're wanting us to kind of go through and do? I think we sent that email out last week.
I believe I received it. I've not had a chance to review it like I would like to.
So let's plan on before our next meeting going through this. Let's have some detailed discussion on this next week, and their team will probably, or not next week, our next meeting. I would assume their team will be with us, so we can I may even get with Jeff, and we may try to just kind of have some open discussion with their team on this, and kind of get through that to help them out.
Weren't they going to send us a copy of their meeting schedule that was on the spreadsheet that they presented at the last meeting?
Sorry, my kid opened the door and I missed part of what you said there.
Brian, I have a copy of that schedule and I can send it out to you.
Okay.
I'll send it out to the entire team, commission.
Whatever it is, Steve's on it. Steve's got us under control. Okay, so I'll add that to my notes for the next meeting. I just shut everything down on that computer. To make sure we have this on there. Sorry, Brian. like I said, I was out of town yesterday, and Steve and I were trying to figure this out as I drove down the road. I was actually riding, I wasn't driving this time, and get it all figured out in the last second. And that's one reason we pushed the meeting back to 2 is the agenda has to be delivered to the media 24 hours before. And by the time Steve and I got together, it was about 1:30, so we had to push it back a little bit. So we'll make sure this is done. Hopefully there's not a holiday before the next meeting, so we'll figure it out and get it out quicker. Okay, so I'll put that in the new business as well. Anything for old business that we're missing?
Jim, I have one question.
Yes.
Who is receiving all the comments that our architect has requested? Is that you, or should I be doing that, or to put it all together? I was just curious.
I thought in the last meeting you were getting that and giving it to me. Didn't we kind of dictate that to? There you are. But I don't. Either way is fine. They can send them to me directly. They can send them to you, and you can get it to me. I thought we decided they were going to use this way. If it was more of a county question, you'd already have those answers instead of me having to go through you and back and forth.
Well, no, I was referring to the requested information from Peck Flannery.
Like this Pinnacle report stuff?
Yes, yes.
Okay. That can go through me. I've been talking to Jeff directly. So I can be in charge of that. That's fine. Anything else for old business? Nope. Josh, do you have a copy of that Pinnacle report? I sent that out. I want to make sure you got a copy of it.
Thank you.
Do you already have a copy of it?
No.
Okay. So I'll resend that to make sure you have that as well. So, all right. Anything else for old business or new business or anything like that? Anything in between? All right.
I'm ready to see you guys in person, truthfully, at this point.
Yeah, me too. I still haven't met all of you all.
Yeah, it's like if I saw Josh on the street, I would have no idea who he is.
Right.
We need to come down and hey, we could do lunch at Burger Theory on Friday.
Heck yeah.
We may actually make that happen. So.
Hey, sounds good.
Just remember, if you guys are in groups of more than 3 of us, you have to sit at separate tables. So.
Or chairman's going to tell us what to do or whatever, Nico, right?
I'm not trying to get that letter from the Attorney General that we broke the open public policy thing. So.
Right.
Well, all right, with nothing else, we will adjourn, and I will take a motion for adjournment.
Let's adjourn.
I'll second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion by Chris and second by Megan. Roll call. Ashley.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
And Brian.
Of course.
All right, motion passes unanimously, and we will get to work on that contract. Hopefully talk to you guys in a couple of days and go from there. So.
Are you ready for me to stop the live stream, Chairman?
Yeah, we're done. So,
Hey, Jim, are you going to be live on YouTube tonight?
apparently, I am part of the Zoom meeting for the fiscal court, so I'm hoping to get my hair cut before then. I tried earlier, and there was like a line out the door from my barber, so we'll see.
Yeah, good luck on that.
Yeah.
I was Keisha's arts and crafts project on Saturday. She cut my hair. She did a pretty good job. I was looking for it, like, oh, let's see. It was like, oh, this looks better than last week. So, so now, what time does the fiscal court meeting start tonight, Steve?
5.
5, and it'll be on YouTube, something similar to what we're doing right now.
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
I'm not really a commissioner, but could I make a motion that Chris not wear, I mean, that Jim not wear his Tennessee hat tonight to the fiscal court? We're trying to have a good working relationship with him.
I'll second that motion.
Man,
I'm a no, and we're supposed to be inclusive of all
I
sports
didn't hear
and
anything
teams
you just
here,
said.
okay?
I don't know what happened.
You're hurting my feeling.
Yeah. I'll try to keep. Maybe I'll wear some Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl gear or something like that.
Okay.
You know.
Very good.
All right, guys. Well, we'll be in touch soon, and we'll keep pushing through all this. And again, we got a lot of excitement. We're built up, so we'll just keep pushing and keep doing good things for the community. That's all we can do.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Very good.
Thank
Thank you.